As the year comes to an end, we shred some of the clips from 2024. George and I can't tell you how much we love pediatricians and how proud we are of our colleagues around the world. We have persons from Greece, Peru, Mexico, Ecuador, Colombia, Lebanon, Chicago, DC, New York, Hawaii, Vermont, Chicago, Miami, Arizona, Michigan, Philadelphia, and we all care for children with love and a passion to change the world. So I had the pleasure to meet Todd. Actually, it's a funny story in the restroom in Coral Gables at the Nichols Children's Hospital CME as he yelled out, "Hey, you're the guy from the podcast." But Todd is a former IT person that then decided he wanted to become a pediatrician. And he is out there about an hour south of Wichita, Kansas. And it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Todd, we always start with the same question. Why did you become a pediatrician?
It's a good story. There's a couple of turns in my life. When I grew up, I was a lot like my father, and he was an internist. And I thought, oh, well, he had some health issues. So I thought, oh, I'm not going to med school, but I do like computer science and physics. So I went and got that degree. I got a computer science degree. And as I was working in the cubicle, I thought, you know what? I really like people and I'm tired of sitting in a cubicle, feel very lonely. And this is a long time. This is 30 years of my life. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to start that journey towards medical school as a non traditional. It was maybe 25 years old. Jump ahead to third year clinicals and med school. And I always thought, oh, I'll probably be an internist or a family doctor. And I've always enjoyed kids. My grandfather and my dad and I were very much like I don't know, just like the little kid when it comes to playing with the toddlers when like the family gatherings. And so when pediatric rotation rolled around, there was some good experiences and some like maybe experiences that say, you know what, you should be a pediatrician. My first night of call in med school was trauma for surgery. And I think it was 8-year-old child who was hit on his bike and had internal bleeding. It was pretty dramatic and sad. And then fast forward to fourth year, I did a pathology rotation, just something interesting. And the other sad story was that they had a miscarriage and they did an autopsy. So I got to see that end of it. It wasn't like the most fun part of it, but the main part I got to see was when I was doing the rotation, just the general peds rotation. I saw how happy the pediatricians were. And that's a general theme you guys talk about. And yes, there are days where it's not very fun, but there seems to be a lot of signs during med school where I saw those happy pediatricians. I saw the ones who work in the hospital and just all the things that they could do for the kids and also just the pleasure they had doing it and how much they like to share their knowledge with the students and with everyone. The residents, they were on a higher standard, but and when it came to that, but we all really enjoyed doing that work, and I saw that, and I really thought this is a big commitment. This is 30 years of my life. I really want something I can enjoy, and I don't mind hard work, but I really had fun doing that.
Luigi has a phenomenal life story. He is of Italian descent, then lived in Africa, then moved to the US, then became a physician in the US. And his life passion is to cure diabetes because his sister was afflicted with the disease or is afflicted with the disease. His passion has taken him through many roads, and an incredible genius as he is, he has led the program at University of Miami and Jackson Memorial Hospital on diabetes, at UT Texas, and now he's working at Sanofi as the global external expert lead for autoimmune type 1 diabetes. Luigi, my dear friend, welcome to the podcast. It's a joy to see you again.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. I'm glad it's recorded because my 95-year-old mother, who still is surviving in Italy, not in a blue zone, but is going to love to hear that introduction.
So Luigi, I think of you as a pediatrician. Why weren't you a pediatrician and a pediatric endocrinologist taking your type 1 diabetes?
That's a great question, Irvin. And yes, you gave my life history in 3 sentences. I was born in Italy, in Chiavari, Liguria. That's where pesto comes from, and focaccia and a lot of other things that are delectable to eat. Grew up in Liberia in West Africa. And at a very young age, knew I was going into medicine, right? And actually, the arm of medicine that I was most attracted to was pediatrics. I just loved the interactions with the children. They were always sunny. They were engaging. They didn't have a lot of the baggage that adults did. And when we moved to the States, I was 16. I was going to start my last year of high school in the States. My sister got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I have to tell you that my sister is needle phobic. And by needle phobic, in Africa, you used to have to get all these immunizations, and they required a needle. If she went before any of the other brothers, nobody else wanted to go in. She would scream her head off. And the fact that she got a disease that requires her to this day to inject several times a day is just, it's ironic. I went through medical school in the States at Emory. And when I was done with medical school, I needed to decide what to specialize in. And at that point, my sister was no longer a kid. She was, at that point, a 21-year-old with type 1 diabetes. And I really wanted to do something that would benefit her in her lifetime. And therefore, I thought possibly going into the adult arm of medicine as opposed to the pediatric arm would better align with what her needs were. And so I did internal medicine and then went down at the University of Miami, did my fellowship in endocrinology and diabetes. And at the end of that, stayed on at the Diabetes Research Institute. And the reason there was they were cure focused. They still are cure focused.
Nicole's a friend of mine from Miami, which I met at Nicholas Children's Hospital postgraduate conference this last March. She's a charismatic speaker. She worked with nutrition with complicated inpatient children at Nicholas Children's Hospital and had now moved on to helping children in the community. If that was not enough, and years of training, first a bachelor's of nutrition at Florida State University and a master's of nutrition, she's also half Colombian from Medellin, the city of the eternal spring. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
Nicole, we always start with why did you become a pediatrician? But you chose a little bit different path. You became a pediatric nutritionist. Why?
I love working with families and children. And with children, we really prevent chronic diseases. We can promote healthy growth and development. And we're developing all these habits from early on in life. Children are growing, so it's exciting. We can make a lot of changes to set their future up for success.
Why did you decide to stay in Miami at Nicholas Children?
I love Miami, the weather, of course, but my family is here. I have my entire Colombian side of the family here, and my husband's family is here.
What's the best thing about Miami?
Probably the weather. I like
The
warm
weather?
The beaches. How silly are you, Herb? The beaches.
The food.
We have a pool, the food. Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things. The culture is really nice too, very welcoming and friendly when you meet the right people.
Dr. Hill is a good friend, fellow pediatrician, and podcaster. We also share a love and passion for one of the most beautiful beaches in the U.S., Wrightsville Beach. He has a distinguished career as a pediatrician, a leader within the American Academy of Pediatrics in Chicago, the talent behind their flagship podcast, a proud father of 5 grown children in North Carolina. In addition to this, he loves cycling at the outdoors. I was hoping we could do this podcast together from Wrightsville Beach, so I had an excuse to visit. But unfortunately, I got pulled back into clinic, so we have to do it over Zoom. Welcome, David. It's a joy to see you.
Thank you, Herb. We're halfway there. I am technically in the town of Wrightsville Beach as we speak. One of us can really enjoy it.
David, why did you become a pediatrician?
It's hard to explain without going to my dad, but saying that it's because my dad oversimplifies things a little bit. My dad is a pediatrician. He still practices. He just got back to 4 days a week at age 82. So he's partially retired now. But I grew up around pediatrics. I helped out in the office. I collected urines. I cleaned exam tables. I followed him around the hospital. And I did get a pretty good sense that I wanted to do something in medicine. But initially, I thought not pediatrics. Like it seemed to be, I heard that it was the lowest paid specialty. I did some work during college in surgery and I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to be a doctor, but I'm not going to be a doctor like my dad. I'm going to be a surgeon. I actually decided I'm going to be a brain surgeon. And so I did all my research in neurosurgery. I tagged around after our chair of neurosurgery at the University of Texas, Houston, now the McGovern School of Medicine. And I did an acting internship back in Memphis under J.G. Roberts, who's chair of the Sims Murphy Clinic. And after a month, and it was a great month, by the way, I really enjoyed it. But I recognized that I wanted to tell people I was a brain surgeon more than I wanted to actually practice, right? I didn't enjoy the physical act of doing it. I just wanted to say, dude, I'm a brain surgeon, and have people be impressed. You can't live like that. So I came back with sort of a crisis and thought, what do I enjoy if this is not what I enjoy? And I realized tagging around after the med peds people, they were my heroes. Like they were the people I enjoyed working with, talking to, looked up to them. I thought, okay, maybe I'll be one of these people. So I got accepted to the med peds program at Chapel Hill, which kind of blew me away. I figured there's probably a clerical error involved there, but I took it and practiced med peds for a couple of years after I got out. And then we moved here to Wilmington with my wife at the time, who completed a nephrology fellowship, and there just wasn't a med peds shop in town. And I was clawing at the door. I didn't come here with a plan. I'm like, okay, I got to do something. I was taking care of the kids, which was fun, but I was like, I got to do something. So I just wandered into this office of a local pediatrician and said, hey, you got anything for me? Can I help out? And he's like, yeah, come on, Debbie, we'll put you to work. And after my first week helping out there, my wife said, I don't think I've ever seen you this happy. I've never seen you come home from work smiling like this. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And so I just stayed. In 2008, it came time to re-up my internal medicine boards. And I realized, yeah, I'm not doing it. And I don't really want to do it. I love what I'm doing. You guys know you're tapping into a very elemental joy, human existence. We love taking care of kids. It's why we have a species. And so, yeah, I go in every day and I get to use my brain and think, and I get to do this thing that's inherently joyful. And that to me is just the best way to live life.
Wow, what a wonderful story. And then what did you find most challenging about your clinical career? Because you transitioned from what we call now the officist career to a hospitalist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what did you find most challenging about being a pediatrician? Dr. Peterson and I met in Miami at the Nicholas Children's annual postgraduate course. She was formerly the director of the pain clinic at Children's National in DC. She's a keynote speaker and entrepreneur. She has been at St. Louis, Harvard, GW. And for those of you that know, I spent 2 years in Chicago at Rush. So welcome to the podcast, Dr. Peterson. It's a joy to see you again.
Yes, it's so good seeing you. And that was a fantastic conference. I'm so glad that out of that, we've been able to reconnect for your podcast.
What a journey from Chicago to DC, Rush Medical School to Harvard, pediatric intern to entrepreneur. Tell us more about your journey.
Yes. So I will say that this has been truly a journey of like self-actualization, honestly, because I didn't have anyone in my family that were doctors. And my exposure to medicine was through the Cosby Show on TV. The fact that he was able to operate a clinic out of his house and spend time with his family and still be involved with events at home and really run his own show. That was what I thought medicine would be like. I was like, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be my own boss. And then I saw that was not the case at all. I always had it in my heart that I wanted to run my own show. And I had it in my heart that I wanted to serve patients to the highest capacity. And I found that just working within academic medicine, it doesn't provide that level of freedom that I had envisioned and being able to serve patients where they really need. I did my residency in St. Louis. Following that, I did 2 fellowships, one in peds anesthesia and one in pain. I want to take care of patients when they're the most vulnerable and wanted to get a pain fellowship because I wanted to serve patients outside of the operating room within their lives. And as I did that within academic medicine, I did find that there were quite a few hurdles that did not allow for me to fully engage in practice in that capacity.
Professor of accounting at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School and Health Policy and Management at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. An expert on healthcare accounting, financing, policy, she has testified in Congress, written on the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, published her studies in leading academic journals such as the New England Journal of Medicine, JAMA, and Health Affairs. Her work has been widely featured in the media and cited in regulations and congressional testimonies. She was a visiting scholar at the Health Analysis Division of the Congressional Budget Office. She teaches graduate courses and has received the Johns Hopkins Alumni Association Excellent Teaching Award. She has served as an expert witness in litigation or arbitrations and provided consulting services to the investment community. She regularly writes for Forbes. Welcome, Dr. Bai. What a phenomenal life story you have.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Bravo and Dr. Lugo.
Dr. Bai, how does one go from getting a bachelor's in Japanese language to engineering to becoming an expert in healthcare economics in the U.S.?
Well, thank you. The bachelor's degree in engineering and Japanese literature in China, that's a combined degree. I had never been exposed to healthcare at all until I came to the United States, entered the doctoral program in Michigan State University. At that time, I was interested in using good data to answer accounting questions. But good data is very limited for governance, board member background for nonprofit organizations. Then hospital, it became such a great research setting because in California, at that time, California hospitals disclose their board background. So I use that data to answer accounting question. But then it opened the door for me to this fascinating world of healthcare. Then it's really by accident. I got interested in healthcare because of the data exposure. Then ever since I got more and more deep into this field, and it's just so much fun. I do not want to go to any other field for research.
Wow. Dr. Dina completed her pediatrics residency at Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital at Case Western Reserve University Hospital in Cleveland.
Yep.
She attended medical school at the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, and she is one of the leading partners at South Riding Pediatrics, which we have interviewed Dr. John before, who is the son of the original Dr. Farrell that started the first practice in Reston. Welcome, Dr. Dina, and it's a joy to see you again. How have you been?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
We always ask everybody, why did you become a pediatrician?
So I always say I am not one of those people that figured it out when I was 6 years old. What do you want to be when you grow up? I came to it gradually. I knew from a pretty young age that I was more of a science math person than like an art, music, English history person. I had no idea what I wanted to do with that. And in high school, I took AP Bio, and my teacher, Mrs. Adler, was saying, hey, you really like biology. I'm like, I really do. I think I want to be a researcher or something. I don't know. She's like, you've ever thought about going to medical school and being a doctor? And I really hadn't. I hadn't thought about it at all. And so she was the first person who put that in my head. And the other thing for me as an animal lover, I was actually tossed up between medical school and veterinary school for a really long time. I didn't know which. I knew I wanted to care for creatures. I wasn't sure whether to go the human way or the animal way. In undergrad, all of the pre-med stuff and all of the pre-vet stuff are exactly the same. So at some point, you have to figure out which terrifying test you want to take and which set of schools you want to apply to. But all like the chemistry and physics and math, all of that is exactly the same. I ended up deciding to be a person doctor, mostly because there was a show called Emergency Vets back in the day. It basically made me cry way too much, where I'm like, I'm never going to make it for veterinary school. So I applied to medical school and went to medical school. And even in medical school, initially, I had no idea as to what kind of doctor I wanted to be. I was like, I guess I'll get into clinical, but I'll figure it out. And it became very clear to me once we started clinical rotations that I really liked because I very much preferred kid patients to adult patients. And then, so I went to pediatrics residency. And then even at the beginning of pediatric residency, what kind of pediatrician do you want to be? I don't know. Do I want to be a generalist? Do I want to be a specialist? What do I want to do? I went through all of the rotations that we go through in pediatrics residency. And really, for me, I'm a sort of a general pediatrician because one, I really found what I liked doing was continuity of care. So getting to see kids over time, even during residency. Some of the babies that I started with in our little resident clinic were 3 when I left, and it was hard to say goodbye to them. And that there was no subspecialty that I liked so much, that I was so passionate about, that I really only wanted to learn more about that. For me, it was really just a natural keeping an open mind process of elimination in terms of what felt like it worked for me.
Hey, Sabrina, and Dr. Rogel is missing. He's taking his wife to the airport. Can you believe it?
I can't believe it. He missed a day. We can talk about him.
Oh my God, he's dying. He's not going to be on the podcast.
FOMO, major FOMO.
Oh my God.
I won't get to meet him. Sad.
So we have a wonderful guest today, someone in our innovation series, and she's a mom. And the topic of the episode today is physician mom burnout in medicine and alternative pathways in pediatric medicine. Take it away, Sabrina.
Sure. I'm so excited, Whitney, to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'll do a brief intro and then we can just get to it. Sound good?
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
Today we have Dr. Whitney Casares. She is a pediatrician and founder of Modern Mommy Doc, which is a blog and coaching platform for working moms. Dr. Casares has authored 3 books on parenting and work-life balance for mothers and is currently a pediatrician at Blueberry Pediatrics, which is a virtual first pediatric care company. Thanks so much again for joining us. So I think we'll start with kind of our general question, which is why pediatrics?
It's funny. Someone was just asking me this last night because with all the work that I do, I have a special degree on top of the pediatric residency, a public health degree in maternal and child health as a specialty. You would think that I would have been an OBGYN. But the thing is, I am not the surgeon type. I can barely cut a steak, much less cut into someone and do surgery. And also, my personality is like most pediatricians, very warm and fuzzy and lighthearted. And so eventually I realized actually that's the place where I should be. I also loved the idea in pediatrics and on being able to follow a family long term. On pediatrics, we get to work with the family for a very long time. Sometimes prenatally, we meet a family, and then we see them all the way until that kid graduates from high school or graduates from college, even sometimes in my case. And so I love that you get that longevity and that you get to have a relationship with the parent and the child simultaneously. So that's why I chose pediatrics, and I'm so glad I did. I would have been an abysmal failure in the surgical world. Not tough enough.
I highly doubt that, but we'll take that answer.
So Dr. Hirsch and I share many things. We grew up in the same neighborhood outside of DC. We obsess about details that wow the customer and lead to processes that have excellent outcomes. His office in Rockville, Maryland, exemplifies his passion for the profession and his love for the art of caring for children as an independent pediatric practice. Stephen, it's a joy to have you in the podcast.
Thank you.
See you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for having me in your office.
Oh, of course.
Stephen, we always start with the same question. Why did you become a pediatrician?
So one of those people that knew it from a young age. So around the age of 7, give or take a year, I just declared to the adults in the world that I just wanted to be a pediatrician someday and have my own office. I think around that age is when you're old enough to find that the infants and toddlers are different creatures and beings. And I find that little children, I love the way they're wired. They're hysterical, their antics, their thoughts, their enjoyment of the world. And there's nothing like it. So if you can have a career where that's what you do most of the day, it's wonderful. I like science. I like biology, the human body, fascinating. So it just made sense for that to be my career. And going through medical school and residency, general pediatrics always called out to me.
Dr. Orsini is a pediatrician, neonatologist, author, podcaster, educator, father, and master communicator. I had the privilege of meeting him at Nicholas Children's 59th CME, and by making a joke about my Spanish, he taught me how to communicate news to parents. Not only bad news, but important news. something that I have incorporated into my clinic days every day. As an aside, bought this wonderful book of which he's the author on Amazon. And I encourage everybody that has to deliver news to parents to read it. If that wasn't enough, I bought it on Amazon and I was a cheapskate. So I bought it used and he sent it to me autographed. Welcome, Dr. Orsini. It's a joy to see you.
Thank you for having me. I've been excited to speak to you people today. I've been looking forward to this. So thank you.
Dr. Orsini, we always ask our guests, why did you become a pediatrician?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I think the simplest answer is that when I was training, I entered medical school thinking I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I was an ex-athlete, and that's what most ex-athletes want to do. But when I did my rotations, the pediatricians were just the nicest people. They were always the nicest doctors. They always seemed to be the happiest. I loved kids, and I really cherished and looked up to them and said, these guys go to work every day happy and enjoy their life. And I think it was really the people that I ran into as I was training.